Welcome back to Indy Fest. How was the morning? Good, huh? That's what I thought. So we're going to take a little break between now and our first of three great afternoon panels, two with operatives from both major parties on separate panels, and I have four national journalists coming in. But we wanted to give everybody, Indy Fest is all about interactivity. We want people to ask questions, but now is your chance to ask Elizabeth Thompson and myself anything, and I mean anything, but just remember that whole thing I said about civil discourse and substantive questions, but we will answer almost anything, I promise. So anyone here, if you're watching virtually, and I know there's a lot of you, put it in the chat, and we will see your questions. Otherwise, raise your hands. You can ask us about anything, preferably about the Indy or politics. Go ahead, sir. Wait till the mic gets there. Okay?
Yes, so everyone can hear.
Thank you for calling on me. I have a question about politics, which you seem to be the savant of Nevada. And
what do you mean seem to be?
well, I'm saying myself,
Okay,
but yes.
Right.
What are your thoughts on kind of the Democrat locally with some of the ethics questions going around with appropriating themselves jobs from the session? Do you think that's going to hurt the Democrats in this upcoming race? I know the governor's pack has kind of been hitting them hard. So what are your thoughts on that?
Are you a Republican, sir? I'm just curious. I'm kidding. We all know that you are. So this will probably come up during one or both of the panels this afternoon. But this is a cop-out in some ways, but it's way too early to tell what is going to... I do think that it is the governor cares the most about the legislative races, much more than he cares about the presidential race here, the Senate race here. And so they're going to marshal all of their resources. And the good thing about being governor is you can marshal a lot of resources, and he's set up some PACs, and so they are going to try to tie all of this together to the Democrats who are in control, abusing their power. Absolute power corrupts, right? You know, all that, and so they're going to tie all these things together. I got to tell you, at least some of the stuff that's come out is really bad. It's really bad. It looks like self-dealing. But they are going to take even the smaller things and try to make it all of a piece and say, you've got to change these seats out and make them Republican, regardless of the candidate, but get rid of the person in power because they voted to help themselves and not you. I think if it's done right, it could have some resonance. What may save some of these Democrats, however, and one has already said she's not running for re-election, is that these legislative races are still mostly decided on local issues, and you can still walk door to door and change the trajectory of a race. But this is the entire gubernatorial political machine is going to be geared up to do this to the Democratic legislature, so there's no supermajority in both houses.
I have one more follow-up.
Are we allowing follow-ups? I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
What about Nevada policy research on suing state legislators, both Republican and Democrats, for being state employees and being legislators? What's your opinion on that, and do you think there's a case to change that going forward?
Well, I have an opinion. I don't think it matters, frankly, and I'm not going to share it as the editor of a nonpartisan organization. But it comes down to the courts, as we all know. And each and every time a case has been attempted in this subject area, we have seen what has happened, which is basically that state employees are allowed to go on being state lawmakers. And so has it been for the entirety of your time, sir, John, the person sitting? Yes, right? It's been that way in Nevada. One of the arguments in favor of allowing it to continue is that, look, we're a small state. It's a citizen legislature. Of course, you're going to have some people who are going to run for office who also happen to be public employees. And what's wrong with that, right? They're knowledgeable about the systems in which they work. They might actually be able to bring, great policy suggestions to the table because they work in a particular area, whether it's education or whatever it may be. And then, obviously the argument against it is self-dealing, right? You don't necessarily want a lawmaker who's a public employee voting on, a bill that stands to benefit them. But then, right, there are ethics to consider and recusals that happen. And, I don't remember in my time recently that there's been anything particularly egregious that has happened as a result of a lawmaker holding public office. Can you think of anything, John? that I'm
Well,
forgetting?
I guess it depends on how you define the word egregious. Let me just finish the answer to this by saying something very simple, and that is this needs to be finally adjudicated once and for all by the state Supreme Court. Unfortunately, NPRI, didn't they change their name? They're like at Nevada Policy now, because basically they haven't been a research institute for a long time. They're basically just an arm of the Republican Party here, which is sad because while the Gwynn Center is doing a great job. Where's Jill Tolles? She's right there, and she's the perfect person to be leading the Gwynn Center. We need as many think tanks as we can, and NPRI masqueraded as a think tank, and they tried to use this issue to get Democrats out of office. This is a real constitutional question. It's a serious question, and it can affect things that happen in the legislature. I just want it adjudicated once and for all, so Nevada Policy and their echoes as columnists in certain newspapers won't keep writing about this thing. Go ahead.
I will gratefully switch the subject from politics to education, which I know is a growing area of the Indy's contribution to our community. This is part frustration, part question. The question is, how do you, if you care to, as a reporting body, help shift the conversation away from education as a dollar amount associated with a job and education as part of the necessity for critical thinking to be able to handle the future differently than we've handled the past?
So you're talking about curriculum, and lawmaking and curriculum as a pair is controversial, right? There are some who believe that lawmakers and public officials shouldn't be involved whatsoever in guiding decisions about curriculum. That should come at a teacher level, an administrator level, a school district level, a state school board level, right? One of the ways, in addition to our reporting, and Rocio Hernandez has just been doing an amazing job since we lost Jackie Valley on education reporting across the state in both urban counties as well as the rural counties. So I just wanted to give a little pitch. And by the way, Rocio's got a great new newsletter. If you're not subscribed to it and you care about education, it's full of nice stories and positive things, and I absolutely love it, because we spend so much time talking about what's wrong with education, and we forget to sometimes talk about what's right. So I know I haven't really answered your question yet, but that's a great.
I can answer it.
Go ahead.
You want me to answer it?
Sure.
This thing has bothered me ever since I first came to Nevada, and even more so after I started covering the legislature, and you hit on it exactly. It's always about a number, like how much money did you put into education? And it's often disingenuous. For instance, Joe Lombardo brags about putting $2 billion. I mean, most of that came in because of the federal government, and he was able to do that, and then they used that as political leverage to try to get school choice on. I'm not here to start or finish the debate on school choice, which would be a big mistake, but where is the culture in this state that values education? And that is where I think we come in, and where part of the Nevada Democracy Project can help too, is going and listening to people and seeing that there are people out there who care about education in this state. And there are a lot of serious issues. One of the reasons that school choice has gained some sustenance, whether you believe in it or not, is parents are frustrated in this state, right? And understandably so. I'm a parent. I get it. We're going through it right now with my wife and our incredible stepdaughter we switched schools. So this is a real issue that needs to be talked about substantively, and not just, as you point out, about how much money is being put into it. And if you read the coverage that we've tried to provide, Rocio and our legislative reporters, we've tried to get beyond that. But it's not going to happen overnight. You just got to keep talking about it. And so hopefully we can be part of the vehicle to do
I
that.
think so too. I'd be curious to know from Jill, don't answer now, whether the Gwynn Center has any aspirations in this area. But I want to kind of piggyback onto something that you talked about, which was, okay, should critical thinking type of curriculum be added? The other questions along those lines that I hear all the time, especially from parents, is, what about personal finance? Should we teach personal finance when you get into high school? Like, how do you open a bank account, and how should you run your, household, and, what about debt, and are there good kinds of debt, that kind of thing, right? So practical, in addition to the, what we might call a philosophical conceptual curriculum, which is what critical thinking is all about, are there more things that we can do in Nevada education, which might especially benefit kids who end up in what we might call the working class, strata of Nevada, who might just need some more basic education about living their lives after graduating from high school. And I think that should be, as I had 3 kids in the school system, and I think there should be a conversation about that as well.
Sorry.
Oh, who's going first?
Okay. John, I'm a fellow Western New Yorker. Go Bills.
All right.
Wow.
Regarding the presidential campaign, Nevada seems to be being ignored. Is that a function of geography? Is it a function of we have an incumbent and a quasi-incumbent running? Or is it just a lack of kind of the retail politic culture that's in Iowa and New Hampshire? And what could happen? What could Nevada do to make us more prominent in the future?
So the only 2 words I like saying more than "Go Bills" are "we matter." And we need to matter, and it's difficult because you have, this, for many decades, this institutionalized, it's all about Iowa, New Hampshire, and then Harry Reid and his organization got us to become an early state starting in 2008, and that changed that dynamic to an extent. I know we have a limited amount of time here, so I want to answer this relatively quickly. The Democratic side, there shouldn't be much attention, right, at all. But there only is because of questions about Biden and his age, and is someone going to get in, and all the rest of that nonsense. On the Republican side, it has become clear that the state Republican Party is trying to fix the thing for Trump by creating a caucus out of whole cloth, and they can barely run a meeting, much less than a caucus. So that's kind of scary, and so there's confusion among the voters. There's mockery nationally about this. And so DeSantis's PAC has publicly said they're probably not going to play here. I don't think that's going to last, by the way. I don't think, if by some miracle he stays in the race and this actually becomes a race, they're going to have to play in Nevada. But it'll be really fascinating to see if there is a primary, because of course the state Republican Party is trying to extort these candidates by saying you can't be in the caucus if you're in the primary. Finally, the caucus is where they're going to allocate the delegates. Well, we don't have any delegates. We have like 26 delegates. And if it's about momentum coming from the early state before they get here, they're going to participate in the primary, I'd guess.
Hi, this is a little bit political, also water related, but in disclosure, I own a piece of property I'm not allowed to develop now because I'd have to put a septic tank on it, and they won't let you, even though I have a water meter on the property. But my question is, at the Water District, or the Las Vegas Valley Water District meeting this week, there were 30 or 40 public comments about the water tiers, about how they think it's unfair. I do feel like the Water District just kind of threw that out there without a lot of public input. But my thoughts, is that going to be a groundswell type of momentum? It seems to be heading that way, which might be problematic for some of the county commissioners or local elected officials in the election season next year.
That's a great question, whether water will be an election issue or will it just, in quotation marks, continue to be a policy issue that people argue about in meetings like the one you're describing. I have no idea. It actually surprises me that there isn't more talk in politics about water and water issues, and that candidates have not started kind of debating and going after each other on water issues, on conservation issues. Do you back conservation over development? But that's right there what makes it tricky, right? Because whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or a nonpartisan in this state, there is this balance that has to be struck between water allocation and development, and you can't just halt growth outright. Any person with common sense knows that, right? And so there is this push-pull in the policy world that hasn't made itself yet, I don't think, too much into the election. So I don't know if it's going to be part of the campaign.
So we're going to take one more question, but let me just say to you, Brian, this is the kind of thing that I want us to be able. I want to have a reporter at a meeting like that so we can dive into an issue like that. And Elizabeth and I are both committed going forward to do more in-depth coverage of local government. But, see how seamlessly I do this.
Yes, good.
That costs money. That costs money for everyone watching. Tell your friends. That costs money for everyone here. Tell your friends, and even better, tell your corporations. We need money. It's a serious thing. We survive on donations, and I want to hire local government. We should have been at that meeting if we could. No one's covering that.
Yeah, I want everyone to know who's here and watching and who will watch next week when all this goes online that a large percentage of our budget, I mean substantial, goes towards our people. The salaries, the benefits, the 401k, the retirement plan. I mean, we don't have an office. We don't have any kind of high overhead. Our overhead, we keep it as low as we possibly can. So I just want everyone to know that if you're thinking about donating to the Nevada Independent, it all goes to the newsroom, basically.
We don't even have our
A great
Indy
portion.
plane yet with the logo
No,
on.
no, we don't, and we never will.
So
One more question.
I want to segue into what you just said.
The private plane, you have one?
No, unfortunately I don't. But first of all, I want to commend both of you for creating an essential and important organization that covers the whole state.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So my question is, going forward, since you have young reporters that are doing fantastic jobs and several of them have left in the past year, what are your plans for developing new talent and finding new talent to continue the growth and the coverage that you do?
Well, do you mind if I handle this? First of all, we know that we've lost two. Megan Musserly went to Politico to be the national healthcare reporter, and Jackie Valley went to Christian Science Monitor to be their national education reporter, and I am very proud of both of them. About 30% of our newsroom used to be interns, so that's one way we do it. We hire interns who are seniors or just out of college who want to be journalists. We coach and train them for usually about a year. We try to plug them into some kind of a fellowship after that for the second year, and then we do our utmost, if John can find the money, to hire them at that point if they have proven their worth, which they almost always have because they've had 2 years of coaching. So that's one way that we do it. I'll also say that with the way the state of journalism in the Western U.S. and across the country, there's a list a mile long of people waiting to come work at the Indy. There is not a supply problem when it comes to talented veteran journalists, and I would love to be hiring more of them.
What she said. All right, I think we're ready
Yeah,
for the
I think
afternoon
that's it.
panels. We're going to take a 5-minute break and come back. We're going to have Republicans first and then Democrats. We got stellar panels, both. I'm so thrilled. And then later, starting at about 2:45, we're going to have 4 well-known national journalists here to talk about the campaign in '24 and more. So stick around whether you're watching here or at home.